in 3, 2, 1.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is the Board of Directors meeting for non-governmental service. It is January 24, and it is 9:33 a.m. And the recording is in progress. So we are called to order and we do have a quorum present. Everybody is here this morning. First item on the agenda is the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any corrections, additions, recommendations? Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
And all those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Approved minutes. Dr. Glass, Executive Director's Report.
So, although you'll see the slides, Ms. Ford, can Mr. Tosi go first? I know, just go through real quick so to get to his slide. Just because we have budget hearings later and Mr. Tosi has been asked to come down and help us. So
thank you, Dr. Glass. So I'm here today, I don't get this privilege too often, but to just update the board on a bill that's going through the General Assembly that will impact the board. It impacts MES and the board. It's an MES sponsored bill, so it's our bill that we're bringing before the legislature, and we're making a few technical changes to MES statute. And so you all have the bill in your packet, and it gets confusing because some of the changes kind of go back and forth. So I'm going to group the changes into some subject matter instead of going back and forth in the bill. So the first set of changes affects the board, and the first change would reduce the vote or the quorum threshold from 5 down to 4. The reason why we're doing that is we had some issues with quorum issues in the past, and we thought we would reduce that threshold down to 4 to make it easier to achieve a quorum. The second change that we're making would authorize the board to allow the board secretary to delegate some responsibilities to an employee of MES. This type of structure exists for the board treasurer right now, to for the board treasurer to delegate some responsibilities to essentially to him. So we're proposing that the same type of authorization exists for the board secretary. And this is really a technical change that would allow an employee of MES to handle things like meeting minutes, the agenda for the board meeting, and the board would retain all of the authority to allow as much or as little of that delegation responsibility as it wishes. So it's really just authorizing the board to do that. So the second set of changes would pertain to legal or contractual issues. The first, again, these are mostly going to be technical changes. The first is the definition of municipality. So this is going to get real confusing. The definition of municipality for MES's statutory purposes includes a whole bunch of different types of entities, like counties, the state. We're proposing that we add the District of Columbia and the federal government. There are some instances where we have worked with those two, and we want to keep the statute consistent. So the term municipality would refer to basically anybody that we're doing business with, and it would be consistent throughout the statute. Again, it's technical. The second legal or contractual issue that we're proposing in the bill would amend the statute to allow MES to provide a proposal instead of a contract. And this is like the Sean Coleman statutory change of 2024. Actually, this is probably the most important one. Right now, the statute says whenever somebody requests our services, we have to respond and we have to provide a contract. We would like to be able to have some flexibility to provide a proposal and not a contract in every instance. And in addition to that, we clarified that we don't have to begin work until a contract is in place. So again, this is important. We hope the legislature, we haven't experienced any issues with this bill yet, the legislature. We did have a hearing on Tuesday, and we have another hearing coming up on the Senate side next week.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, yeah.
It seems to me one is going down the street, the other one's coming up. Again, the contract says we've got something we can go with. A proposal says, here's a proposal, an idea of what we want to do. It does not constitute a merge in terms of.
It's not a legally binding,
Right.
like a proposal would not be a legally binding set of conditions, right? The contract would be. Oftentimes, we don't need to provide that level of detail with the request for services. The county, the municipality, most businesses are just looking to see what our price points would be.
And it would follow up with a contract.
I mean, if we get to the point where they would like to employ MES, then yes, obviously we would have to have an agreement in place, but this would allow us to save our AG's time by not having to provide a contract in every instance where we get an email saying, hey, what is it gonna cost for you to operate this wastewater treatment? Does that make sense? Okay. The last set of changes that we're proposing would deal with reporting requirements. The first change is to repeal a reporting requirement that was a one-time reporting requirement and is no longer needed in statute. This dealt with in the MES Reform Act of 2021, there was a requirement for MES to do a misallocated expenses audit. We performed that audit. The audit had a couple of findings. We made those changes, the board made those changes to a number of items, and we've since received an interpretation of the statute from the Department of Legislative Services that this is a one-time audit requirement. You don't need to continue doing it. So we're just proposing to remove the language of statute, so there's no ambiguity there. And the last change deals with two things, and we're again trying to make a technical change in the law that kind of makes things a little bit simpler. So there are two, we have multiple reporting requirements in the statute, but there are two that are subject to this change. We have an annual financial audit that we have, an independent financial audit that we have to perform each year. And it's due, the current law says it's due as soon as practical after the close of the fiscal year. The second annual reporting requirement that we're looking to change is the annual report. The annual report is like a comprehensive document that shows, what our operating groups did throughout the year, and a number of other things, but it also includes a complete operating and financial report on the agency. Now, oftentimes we have just included, at least for the last 4 years that I've been here, we've included the independent financial audit as to fulfill that requirement in the annual report. The annual report's due 90 days after the close of the fiscal year. We've had some problems with getting the financial audit done in a timely manner. So I want to take these two reporting requirements, make it official that we just include the independent financial audit in with the annual report, and have them all due on October 31st of every year. Makes it simple, gives us clarity on when things are due, gives the independent auditor clarity on when they have to get their things done. There might be some tweaks to this bill that we have to make. Talking with Hammond a little bit, October 31st might be a little bit too soon. So we might have to go back and maybe make it a November deadline instead of October, but we want some clarity and a firm due date for this requirement. So that's pretty much it. Because the bill does have some elements in it that affect the board of directors itself, the board may want to weigh in on the matter. Very rarely do we have any bills that actually affect the board of directors itself. But if you would like, we could, and this is not a problem to submit written support testimony after the fact, because we had a bill hearing on Tuesday. But if you would like, the board could vote in favor of supporting part of the bill that affects the board directly, or the entire bill. And you could take that motion now, you could take it at a future board meeting, it's really up to you, but it's something I think that the elected officials may ask about in the process of deliberating the bill. So that concludes my remarks on the bill, and I'll leave it up to you all on what any type of weighing.
How does the board feel about supporting this bill? I'd like some feedback, and I believe Ms. Joes has a question.
Yes, thank you. This is with the second page, Mr. Tossi,
Yeah.
where we are reducing the quorum requirements to 4. But the second line says we still need a majority of 5 to make a decision. Is that consistent?
Well, the statute directs the board how it needs to handle its business. We propose just to handle the quorum requirement right now. If the board would like to propose to reduce the voting threshold down, or if the board is uncomfortable with the quorum being reduced down to 4, we would obviously take all of that into consideration, and I would love to hear the board as a whole, their thoughts on this issue. I recognize that it's a little bit awkward to have a quorum requirement reduced down to 4, but a vote threshold of 5. So it's a good question. There's no like super impressive reason why we did it that way, other than just to kind of not bite all of the apple off at once and maybe make things a little bit easier down in Annapolis. But you know, obviously welcome your thoughts on how you'd like to handle it.
I understand reducing the quorum requirements to 4 in case we have a absent member, or, just to start the business of the meeting. I'm comfortable with keeping the votes needed to 5 to make a decision. Love to hear from the other members.
Are there any other comments about quorum versus approval of a motion?
So, like it's being proposed, and there was some business we had to take care of, we couldn't do it if we did not have 5.
That's correct.
Right.
And I don't know whether or not that's how often situations like that come up. Because you could, do something in terms of proposing, moving the meeting to the next day, so you could do something like that. So there are ways around it, you just have to be aware of those things.
So I'll say, we had a pretty unique circumstance, set of circumstances over the last couple of years. Once the board was restructured to 7-member board, we had a few instances where one particular board member who's not on the board anymore had to recuse himself frequently due to conflicts of interest. In conjunction with that, we occasionally had a board member that had to that couldn't make a meeting. And then, sort of the perfect storm scenario, right? We had a board member and a vacancy on the board for an extended period of time. I've only been here for 4 years. There are people who have been here a lot longer than me who know that these circumstances are pretty unique and, hopefully, won't happen as frequently anymore. So I don't think there's gonna be a huge issue with keeping the vote threshold higher. And usually those things are gonna come up in advance of a meeting. So we're gonna know, a week, a few days out, a week out, if we're gonna be rubbing up against, some quorum or vote threshold problems at a particular meeting, and perhaps, we're taking steps before the meeting to handle those issues. And with, and the chair was telling me earlier today that, with the ability to do the board meetings virtually now, those problems are less and less frequent than they might have been in the past, right?
Can I make a request? I see a copy of those slides. Have a hearing on that. And these are, I just been asked, maybe I need to get something a little more succinct, and the slides kind of do that. So look at this.
Are you talking about the way that they're broken down?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could, absolutely.
I mean, I know you could, but I asked for them.
You got it.
All meetings are also posted on the website too. So.
I believe Treasurer Davis. Treasurer Davis?
Yes, thank you very much. And forgive me, I had to switch to my cell phone. The microphone's not working on my laptop. I just wanted to add something to for the purposes of discussion, or so that you can have it in mind. I was trying to wait until we actually got a copy of the bill, but my office is going to be pursuing legislation that would remove the state treasurer's office from the MES board. So that would lower, unless they find a replacement, that would lower the number of members that you have as well, if it's successful.
Yeah, I think it's Treasurer Davis. I think it's one of those things where if the legislature decides that that's the appropriate course of action, and they decide that they don't want to replace the treasurer with an additional member, keeping the board at a 7-member board. Let's say they decide a 6-member board is sufficient. Then at that point, I think it would be almost imperative to have both the vote threshold and the quorum reduced down to 6. And I'm assuming that's kind of what your legislation might do, although I haven't seen it yet.
Are you saying reduce to 6 or 4?
4.
Did I say 6? I meant 4. Yeah, I meant 4. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what happens in the event of Treasurer Davis's bill succeeding, and then there's a tie in the vote? I guess it doesn't reach 4 or 5.
Fails.
So yeah.
If it doesn't have the majority, it fails.
Okay.
Which has not happened very often in MES history. But it's a good question.
We would obviously work with the committees on both of these bills to make sure that there's no inconsistency and what's the changes that are made on this subject matter.
And if I can, just based upon my experience, I would strongly recommend to the board, if there are any things that you want to see, I'd go for it all right now. And, if there are things that they have problems with, they will take out, amend out, or whatever. But if you submit something now and then want to come back and do it again, a lot of the wisdom may be, well, we just addressed that last year. Why are we doing it again this year? You may want to put it all on the table now. And I don't think what you're proposing is too big a bite where you probably should split it up. It sounds like you're talking a sort of a comprehensive change. So you may want to tell them upfront everything that you need. And then if you have to come back later, you would have at least put that out previously, as opposed to saying, this is what I need, and then come back next year and go, no, this is what I need. They're going to ask, why didn't you do it last year?
Yeah, Treasurer, that was the intent on doing sort of an omnibus set of technical changes to our statute. That was our aim, to get it all out of the way in one bite of the apple, like you said.
Okay.
I had a couple of questions for you, Mr. Tosi. On the slide, it notes there was a hearing in the House on Tuesday. What was the general discussion in the hearing? I mean, were there a lot of questions? Were there a lot of concern or red flags raised by any members?
There was one question by Delegate Love. She was asking a little bit about the misallocated expenses audit, and then she asked a question about the two the two reporting requirements that were kind of marrying together. And Dr. Glass was the individual who testified on the bill. And from my perspective, it appeared as though he answered the questions satisfactorily. There was a comment from Delegate Metzger that wasn't a question, but it was just an observation that in his opinion, the changes that are being proposed are very much technical in nature, and not substantive or controversial in any way. So though, and that was pretty much it, as far as comments on the bill.
And then the other question I have is, I have looked through these briefly, but not that closely in the packet of materials that we got. Are there any differences between the House and Senate version, or are they exactly the same?
They're identical.
Okay.
It's called cross-filing the bill, so you get bill hearings sooner rather than having to wait for one chamber to receive from the other chamber. So you get the discussion out of the way quicker that way.
Do we know when the Senate hearing is?
Yes, next Thursday,
Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
the 31st.
So how does the board feel about taking
I
a
have a
position?
comment.
Yes,
I talked to RSM, our financial auditors, about October 31st date. And they would like, say, November 30. I said, absolutely not possible. So then they said November 15th. So I just wanted to bring it up to, if it is October 31st, then we'll just tell us now. If you cannot do it, we'll find somebody else. But
The question on that is gonna be, like, that would be the statutory requirement for MES to submit its report to the legislature. We also need to build in some time for review. And the governor's office likes to review, and DBM likes to, the Department of Budget Management likes to review reports before they're submitted to the legislature. So we would, if we put November 15th in the statute, we would need to make sure that they can complete their audit in advance of that date, not we get the email on that date. So if they're saying November 15th, we would want to put November 30th.
that's what they absolutely wanted until November 15th for audited report in our hand. But if we wanted October 31st, I'll make sure that they understand that, they commit to it now.
Yeah, I mean, as far as this is concerned, I don't think that if the board voted to support the bill, this is not something that I think the board would then need to go back and relitigate the discussion on the bill. I mean, this is very much just sort of a technical issue, and that's just my opinion. I don't want to speak for the board, but I think it's a technical thing that we can work out in the legislative process without having to continue to come back.
Okay.
when historically have they completed the audit?
December most of the time.
All right, so.
At a time. The
Right,
other
and
audit
in
is
previous years, we had it
in October.
Okay. How long has RSM been doing the audits?
I think this is the 5th year, so there are 3 years, and we have a renewal of 3 years, so it expires in. But if they cannot do the date, we don't have to worry about expiration date. Because it is required, they were told that October 31st was the date. And we keep state informed all the way through. Every time there's a delay, we inform the state. We did provide them the preliminary statements, so state can start working on their consolidation. And most of the time, it doesn't change that much, but if it's gonna be in the bill, I want to make sure that I tell them that we want in our hand by October.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why this is important to make sure that we are getting this audit sooner is because we have to go through a budget development process with the Department of Budget Management. We then work with the Department of Legislative Services on developing our budget. And oftentimes what happens is our numbers are not the final audited numbers, and they change a little bit. And it creates some confusion in that process. So we want to make sure that we're being able to hold people's feet to the fire, get these audited numbers so that everything that we're submitting is the final number.
Any other questions? And how do we feel about writing a letter of support?
Well, so the comment I have is that I would think we would want to lower the voting threshold to 4 if Treasurer Davis leaves the board and we have a 6-member board. But if not, I think leaving it at 5 is okay, but I do think we would want to consider lowering that if he does leave the board. Or that spot leaves the board.
As far as the legislative process is concerned, I can certainly make sure that I articulate during the discussion process those sentiments and make sure that that the committees understand the board's feelings on that subject. If the legislature decides that they would like the treasurer to continue on the board, which is their prerogative, then we would be lobbying to make sure that the vote threshold remains at 5. Or if they decide that the treasurer should be removed, but add a member, to keep it a 7-member board, which effectively keeps the numbers the same. And if it's the board's wishes that we continue to have a 5-vote threshold, then the same rule would apply. Does that make sense?
Does to me.
Okay.
Thoughts on a support letter? If we're in favor, I would welcome a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll
Thank
second
you.
the motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion or comments? One thing I would like to bring up, Mr. Tosi, is we won't have the board together to sign a collective letter. So is it okay if I sign it electronically
Yeah, I
on
mean,
behalf of the board?
if that's the board, if the board approves that, then yeah, I mean, we can certainly do that.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we can take a vote on that. All in favor of sending a support letter for the MES bill? If you could raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? It's approved unanimously. Thank you.
To skedaddle.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you, Dr. Glass, thank you, and thank you to the board very much. Appreciate it.
okay, Dr. Glass, I do believe we can
Yeah, we go backwards.
digress.
We go backwards.
Okay.
Much to Ms. Fuller's chagrin. So, quickly, I lost the frugality battle on the last expense report. I had one expense for $36 to attend the State of the Ports. It was a great event, and we were well represented, and everything is going well with our relationships with both the MAA and MPA, and they're both doing well. So I got a chance to speak with Ricky Smith and other distinguished senior executives, MPA and MPA. Next slide. Want to highlight that we had EDR hosted the Baltimore, Ms. Dollinger and EDR hosted the Baltimore City Office of Sustainability. They and Maryland Department of Environment have the opportunity to submit large proposals for the climate pollution reduction grants. They're the only 2 entities in the state that have that opportunity. We've reached out to express our support for their efforts and hope that we can be written into those proposals. MDE said they did not need any assistance at this moment in time, but I believe Ms. Dollinger is still in communications with Ms. Richardson, the director of that Office of Sustainability, and it's really great. My high school students at Glen Burning High School are moving forward with green roof technology, which when I was at Howard University, I did research on, and there's the American Society of Landscape Architects has a beautiful green roof on I Street Northwest, and so I gave them that document and gave them more information. I continue to talk to them once a month. We had WSP in, and we had a great meeting on January 3rd, right after the new year. And they're looking at more ways to engage with our NEPA work. And they are already, neither the executives that came nor I really knew that they were already on one of our short lists. So they were informed of that. And I had a great meeting with Council Fire, another EDR subcontractor. And I want to highlight that I visited the historic East Baltimore Community Action Coalition. and walk the neighborhood, I guess it's just north of Johns Hopkins Medical Center. Had a great time with Miss Jenny Hope and look forward to supporting her. And an interesting thing, she had a problem with her HVAC in one of her buildings, a warehouse building. And I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Hill and Mr. Moran and our facilities. And I took the privilege to say, hey, well, we're not going to create a contractual relationship, but we can do a little pro bono support to a nonprofit. People in the building, a big, large warehouse, were in 30-degree temperatures inside the top floor. Mr. Moran has gotten our HVAC system programmed properly. They went over just for a couple hours and diagnosed the problem and we got the heat on. So just a little pro bono work, helping out nonprofits. Hopefully we can continue to engage with nonprofits that we can write proposals with, and then also help in their energy, water, and all environmental conditions. So that's it and then obviously a lot with Department of Legislative Services. We love them, and we'll be talking with them this afternoon. They wrote a very nice report of us and all the work we did in FY23. And that we have our House hearing this afternoon on the operating budget, and our Senate tomorrow on the operating side. So, next slide. So fancy dancy in Annapolis this time. Happy to report recruitment season is really launched. I don't know where my numbers. We have spring recruitment season is full swing. We have 22 college and job fair events scheduled for this quarter. 15 of those events are in January and February. We try to keep it, we don't like to pay more than $700 for a fair. So there are some universities that charge as much as $1,000 for their job fair. Like the free ones even better, but recruitment is going well. I got a number this morning. I'm gonna read it from my email because I'm really happy that the internship program has launched. Our second annual summer internship program has launched. It went out 2 weeks ago, the ad. If you don't follow me on LinkedIn, shameless plug, you should have seen it if you do. However, in 2 weeks, as of this morning, we have received 62 applications for our internship program. It doesn't close until February 29th. Most universities are either just getting back into the second semester, or they're going to be finishing soon, but just great numbers. So last year, for reference, we had 92?
Like 99.
99 applications. So by the end of February, hopefully we will definitely break into the hundreds. And then I don't know our full count on our numbers. Last year we had 13. Hopefully we will have around that same number, but it gets more and more competitive to come spend time with us in the summer. That's final fix. Next slide.
Okay, no question. So have to be careful about being too competitive, but people know, why am I going to apply? And they're not going to select me. So they maybe need to get more spots.
That's funny. I don't think Harvard or Princeton or Yale say, too many people are applying. Or Hopkins. But I think Nathan Johnson, I know. We will make sure that we have community college students and all of yours.
I just think that big is not always best, because people will say, I'm big enough and good enough, I can go any place I want. I'm not going over there because I don't have a chance.
Yeah. So before that, we onboarded 10 new employees and lost 13 in December. This number was large, primarily the number of lost employees or that ended their time with us, but was also due, even though MES isn't on the normal state clock of July 1 and December 31st, we did have 5 retirements in December. And Mr. Radzic was our Mr. Radzic, still keep working with us sometimes, but he retired too. But our vacancy
office Tuesday.
Yeah, he's our vacancy rate remains below 5%. I won't steal HR's thunder. And so next slide. So this goes in the category of I wrote a little funny ditty here. At a potluck lunch, we were celebrating 2 long-term staff, Lynn Vu and Lynn was one, right?
Yeah,
And then Rachel, was her name Rachel?
yeah, Rachel.
McCluskey, yeah, Rachel McCluskey. All right, so they were leaving, and we were in the training room and potluck lunch, no MES expense, of course. And I had an idea. So I'm sitting at a table, I had an idea, there are managing directors in the room, and I say, we should take a picture of every great distinguished alumni employee of MES, because they're leaving on a high note, they're like George Costanza and Seinfeld, leaving on a high note. And we should take a picture and put their name and their years of service and put it on the wall in the training room and just build the whole wall down, right? But managing directors, you have collaborative leadership, managing directors are free to speak, and they said that was a horrible idea. Which I took their advice and I said, yeah, maybe that's a little too low. So we chatted, Combs was in the room, I don't know, she's probably watching, Combs was in the room. And so I said, well, being a delegator, go think about it, right? Figure out what we can do. So Combs and Ms. Donner, Ms. Slatnick, I believe, led the effort to come up with the idea. LinkedIn has been a key tool for us in getting the vacancy rate down. And we have come up with the Maryland Environmental Service Distinguished Professionals Alumni LinkedIn group. So we take pride in all the training and education that's providing to our staff, and how so many MES staff go on and have incredible careers in other state agencies and in other county governments. A lot of DPW directors you'll meet in the state of Maryland had some time with MES. And so we launched it, and just last week. If you're lucky enough, you'll get an invitation to join. It's a private group, and hopefully we'll continue to support all of our folks that have come and launched their careers and participate in their careers with us. So just want to tell that quick story.
I got nervous when I got an invitation.
He's making jokes from home. Next slide. Next slide. Is there anything else? Did you just give me that? I didn't get, yeah, we didn't have any pictures. All right, sorry, there's no pictures from our last strategic advance on January 12th. Our 28 performance measures continue to provide insight into our performance and continue to evolve. But some highlights of the meeting include, we plan to buy some compost cans and bags and give them away to staff. We're going to launch this program this month, or maybe not this month, but next month. And we want to support food waste composting. So food waste composting, for those that aren't familiar, is the best way we can deal with organic waste. Now we're biased because we operate the food waste composting in Prince George's County, but it is a great way to make sure that organic waste does not create methane in landfills, nor become carbon dioxide directly in incinerators. So we hope this is a challenge that staff will take advantage of taking the cans. This is, can I say, this is Mr. Coleman's participation. This is his comment, and I thought it was incredible. And this is the kinds of ideas that come from getting 40 people from the organization together once a quarter. And so hopefully we can stimulate the education. Mr. Tosi has left us, but he did it last year. I'm sorry. So if you work at headquarters, you can bring it here and put the compost. We compost food waste here in the building. You can put it in the bin next to the building, and it gets taken to Prince George's County as they're doing their normal run from BWI Airport, etc. So anyway, that's idea number one. Idea number two out of the strategic advance. I think Slatnick and I had the same idea at the same time. I don't know who said it first, but we're going to, and Mr. Sharma has decided he'll take the lead. But he's not an engineer, so I tell him he needs some help, but whatever. We want to move forward with geothermal for our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning for the building. So the numbers are 70 to 90% of our energy comes from the solar fields behind the building. There is a geothermal bill that we're in this session, but MES has accumulated the land around this property. Don't know how many wells they need, how big the loop is, all of that engineering will be done. But it's just a great idea to get us completely off of natural gas for the building and have a geothermal HVAC system, ground sourced geothermal HVAC system that can provide the rest of the energy we need electricity wise and heat and cool us throughout the year with clean energy. So, and then we'll track our process of how we do it, and hopefully tests then can say they have the capability, and we can help other people create ground sourced heat pumps. So that's another one. And then another one, shout out to the environmental operations group. They initiated a board review for accidents, for our traffic, car accidents, vehicle accidents. And they've shown some positive results in the last quarter. And so I'll say this publicly, the board review is rolling out to the other operational groups. And so that internal to the groups, anytime there's an accident, there's the senior leaders in that group will evaluate exactly what had happened and how we can take steps to remediate it. And I think this idea also came from the session. It turns out that our manager and supervisor training program, which is launching again this spring, that starts next month, because it's connected to the career ladders, has received a lot of demand internally, and a lot of staff had to be turned away. So we are currently investigating the costs and whether Anne Arundel Community College can also give us a second 5-month course. And because I'm always shamelessly talking about all the stuff we do, Chesapeake Bay Trust, they pay for manager supervisor training to some DC company. And we started giving them numbers so maybe they can have some of their staff that want to go through the manager supervisor training come to us. So I'll make sure to pitch this to MD and DNR as well and see if they're interested. And then there's only one slide left, and I'm going to pass the mic to Debbie Friquette.
I get to be the Debbie Gold.
Oh, no.
No, unfortunately, we lost an operator. Mr. Wright had been with us since the late 90s, and I got to know him really well. He was working at Myersville, and we were doing a plant upgrade there at the same time. And he was very quiet, got the job done, but he was also really, really good operator. And when you got him alone, one-on-one, a really nice person. He loved his family. He talked about his son, his grandson all the time. Just a really stellar employee. And unfortunately, he had some health issues and he passed away much too early, much too young.
Sorry to hear that.
So if we can just take a brief moment of silence for Mr. Wright and his family.
Forget it.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, all right. So next we have the new business report, which is in your packet and displayed on the screen. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we can move to the financial update. Mr. Cantel is here to tell us about our solvency.
So I sound like a broken record. But however, financial condition is great. So as you can see here, and thank you, Ms. Fuller. I promised last couple of times to make it simpler because on the left-hand side, the graphs are by the groups. And the amounts on there are just per group. So I put a consolidated on the right-hand side for the board. So that way you are more interested in the total instead of by the group. I can say that every single group has a billable labor increase. Overall,
Wow.
over fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24, so far in 6 months, we are halfway there. It is 12.69% more in billable labor. So if you can see on the right hand, the difference between the actual and fiscal year 24 budget is 929,000. We are 929,000 over the budget. Budget was already 4% higher than the previous year. So $929,000 over the budget translate into about $1 million in overhead and fringe recovery. So that was, over and above what we had budgeted. If you look at the fiscal year 23 to 24, our billable labor is $2.3 million higher than fiscal year 23. So in each group, we have significantly higher billable labor, and mainly because of the recruitment effort, retaining the employees, and our expertise is increasing in so many areas that, we are getting more and more projects, which we'll discuss in our billable hours in the next slide. So this is comparing 6 months, fiscal year 24 versus fiscal year 23. The labor sales is up 12.69% overall, and billable hours is up 7.47%. The labor sales include the salary increases, all that, but strictly looking at the billable hours, it tells us that, we have expanded the scope of our work in existing projects as well as we are getting new projects. The overhead recovery is up $832,000, which is 9.71%, because we are exceeding even the budgeted expectation of billable labor. The overhead expenses are just slightly up, so it is not significant. However, the recovery is so much higher that even if we have the same the overhead expenses as budgeted, we still have much more overhead variance. So if you can see that here, the overhead variance is $852,000 higher, which is basically bottom line, the net earnings. It is one component of the net earnings. The fringe variance is $802,000 over last year. Working capital is $46,000, and working capital is directly related to billable labor. If the projects have not given us an advance, we charge this working capital 3%. So the more billable labor, and most of the time, if you are expanding the scope of the work, you are dealing with the same clients. If they don't have a project advance on the previous project, they're not going to give the project advance in the new project. So that's why it will be always little increase in the working capital recovery. The project variance is mainly because of the used oil sales. And the significant increase is in the interest income. And hopefully, we will keep investing it, and the interest income will keep on increasing. One of the discussions for midshore extension, where we're informed by one of the consultants, Joe Zimmerman, that we should look into a long term. Right now, the short-term treasury rates are much better than the long term. But he says, we should look into, just for the midshore part, we should look into locking up a long-term return. So, if we can get a long-term return for 10 years, when we're not going to use that money, we'll explore that. But currently, the best rates are in the short term. And the last one. Okay, so this is, we had a budget in the first column, and I'll go through each line item, but increase in net assets is the net earnings expected according to the budget. As I said, the billable labor is more than the budget, so we have more recovery. Full year estimate is a projection based on 6 months, and we are at 6.7 million, which is much higher because the billable labor is high, and lately we have vacancies in overhead positions, in almost most of the overhead departments here, including finance, we have vacancies, and if that vacancy, we are filling as fast as possible, but that significantly adds. On one way, our billable labor is increasing. On the other side, our overhead positions are vacant, so we are saving on that. So that's why, it looks like we will have a full year, estimate of net earnings of 6.7 million. I mentioned a couple of times before, I was waiting until this point. Now I'm pretty confident that our net earnings will be much higher than expected. So in July, when the state matched the deferred compensation for the state employees, I feel very confident to bring it to the board that we will give $600 one-time lump sum 401k contribution for all MES employees. So the net earnings looks good, and I don't see any dip in that, so it will be a good time to bring it. Of course, we'll talk internally, but it is not MES's intention to keep accumulating the net assets. So part of it will go towards the best and best plus. Part of it will go to the contingency fund. And I want to put some of the money into employees 401k to even out, the earnings over the years. Giving the employees raises and all that, they spend it and it's gone. Here, this is tax deferred and hopefully it will grow.
That's great news.
Anything?
This would just be matching the state. The state has already done this for samples.
That's all. If any questions?
Are there any questions? In the packet, there is the customer accounts receivable as of December 2023. I didn't know if anybody had any questions about that.
I think it's better than the last year. If you look at the graphs, right now we are trending better. And yes, we are diligent in collections. There are no major collection issues. And majority of our clients are government customers. Sometimes they delay in paying that, but they need a lot more backup than the private. The private companies, they pay much faster. Say, here's your scope. You did this work. We're gonna pay. But because of the state or county requirements, they will need more backup. But I don't see any significant issues on any of those.
Human resources report, who is going to be giving that?
I would love to. I will keep it short and sweet. We are trending in a great direction. Our overall vacancy rate is 3.83%. We are below 4% for the first time since May 2023. So very proud of those numbers. That's really all I have.
Okay, any questions on the good news?
No, good.
Wonderful, and procurement, Mr. Kessel.
Yes, I will try to keep it short and sweet, but we have 8 items this time instead of 1 from the last one. We'll try to move these along as quick as I can. So we have item 1 here. This is with the water wastewater group. Buffalo State Park with 1,000-gallon elevated water storage tank. This is for repairs, modifications, cleaning, and retaining. We had 3 bidders, and the parent bidder was Minot Industrial at $253,700. It's a 90-day term with an MB goal of 12%. And although the bids were higher than the estimate, than the engineer's estimate, they appear consistent with recent pricing trends due to cost of materials, labors, supply and chain issues.
Well, is there a motion on the floor regarding procurement item number 1?
So
Second,
Second.
are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, unanimous approval. Number 2.
Okay, item number 2, the water wastewater division. The product name is Swallow Falls State Park Water Treatment Plant Upgrades. And this was done as a competitive sealed bid, and we only received 1 bid, and that was Carl Belt. And the amount is for $2,061,480. And there's a 10% MBE goal on this project. So the project was advertised both on the email marketplace and on the MES bonfire website. Emails were sent to 26 general contractors on the MES bidders list. 14 companies requested bid packages. 7 expressed the intention to bid. 3 actively participated in the pre-bid meeting, and 2 actually visited the site. However, we only received 1 bid, and that was Carl Belt. And we asked them for reasons. We asked the bidders why we didn't receive more. And the 2 main reasons were potentially difficulty of the geological conditions and also the difficulties in meeting the MB goal for their subcontractors. So we were also able to negotiate, since we only received 1 bid, we were able to negotiate the price down reduction of $25,520 from their original bid that they provided us. So we were able to get a reduced price of $25,520.
I do feel confident that the final price is within industry standard range.
And they have done work for us before on quite a few projects,
Oh, okay.
and they have been reliable.
Okay. Mr. Davis's question. Treasurer Davis.
Thank you. I was just wondering, I think I missed the last part. What was the issue with the MBE goal and the bidders?
They stated that they had difficulties meeting the MB goal for their, I guess, the subcontractors that they were going to use. That was their, that's what they told us.
Yeah, we seem to hear that a lot.
So
Thank you.
Just to elaborate on that, this is in Garrett County. We have 1 approved MBE contractor in the county. And that's a trucking company. This is a challenge I go through with about every job I do.
Good information. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
So one last question on that. So did that show up in a majority of the responses for the reason for no bid was the MBE issue, or like what share of the responses raised that as an issue?
I don't have that exact number of how many. All I know is that was just one of the issues that came up. But as for if all of them mentioned that, I couldn't tell you at this time if all of the potential bidders expressed that same concern.
But we'll get the information to you, Mr. Botts.
Thank you.
It's recorded. For anyone that's interested.
You know what? Can I go back to that?
Sure.
Because I don't want that to take hold. I mean, when I look at contracts, whether it's here or the Board of Public Works and so forth, we get MBE bidders from outside of a given jurisdiction. So, I mean, are we saying in Garrett County that they're saying they only know folks or can do bidders within the borders of Garrett County? Or, I mean, if the price is right, you can get it from anywhere in the state as shown in other contracts that come before this board. The stuff that's in Prince George's isn't just Prince George's MBE bidders, for example. So I don't know. It just sounds convenient to me that they're using that. It goes to a lot of the things that we hear when we say, oh, we can't find qualified people, or we can't do that. Exactly how much effort are they putting into trying to find it?
Good question.
Yeah, I know on previous projects that we have had out in Western Maryland at the parks, putting in wells. A lot of, as a matter of fact, a couple of times we ended up with Carl Belt, and the well drillers didn't want to go after the work themselves. They actually went, they gave their prices to Carl Belt, and they ended up doing the work because I don't know if Belt, they had a better time getting MBEs or whatever, and the well drillers just weren't used to doing it. I'm not sure, but that seems to be the way things have worked out west on previous projects.
Thank you.
Ms. Jones?
Yeah, thank you. Just to kind of piggyback of what was just said, is MES asking these contractors that are saying they can't find MBs for good faith efforts or documentation that they actually reached out and they didn't find anybody? Because That's not a significant goal, 10%. Usually down here in Baltimore, DC water, the goal's about 30 to 40%. And to segue off what Secretary Davis said, they can use MBs across the state. So are we asking for a good faith effort from these contractors, or we just, they say they can do it and we just approve it?
I was gonna say, I don't think we don't ask about good faith effort except for the bidders.
Except for the low bidder, if they are not achieving full goal, we request a good faith effort on either the partial waiver or the full waiver. If they're meeting the 10% goal, then we just request attachments B and C, MB forms attachments B and C. But for companies that didn't submit any bid, we do not request good faith efforts from a customer, from potential bidders that didn't bid the project if they.
Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Witt. Is there a second?
Second.
Judge Smolkin? Any other questions or comments? And if none, if you are voting for approval, please signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody not moving approval? And any abstentions? During regular hours? Okay, did we catch Ms. Joe's vote? Was that a negative or an abstention?
An abstention.
Okay, thank you. Okay, number three. Number three.
This is the environmental operations group. This is Montgomery County Yard Trim Composting Facility. This is for a 6,400 horizontal grinder. This is an intergovernmental cooperation, Sourcewell awarded contract agreement. So this is with Rolf Tractor Mid-Atlantic for $836,584. And this is for immediate delivery. The goal is 0%. This heavy equipment is manufactured by the CBI factory, and there is no subcontracting opportunities.
Are there any questions? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Box moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Treasurer Davis, second. Any other questions, comments? If not, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous approval. Thank you. Number 4.
Item 4, again, it's the environmental operations group. This is for the Montgomery County Yard Trim and Compost Facility. This is just to provide general labor to the Montgomery County grinding operations in Durwood and the Montgomery County Yard Trim Compost Facility in Dickerson. This is a competitive sealed bid. As you can see, we received many bids. However, the top 3 were deemed non-responsive, so we went to the 4th low bidder, which is Earn Contractors Inc. at $1,268,780. This is a 15-month contract from notice to proceed. There's a 30% MBE goal, and the top 3 apparent low bidders were deemed non-responsive for not fully completing the services bid form, and that's the reason they were thrown out.
Okay, good reason. There's quite a difference between high and low, even, especially including those 3 at the top. That's pretty amazing, but I see the bulk of them are in the same range. Are there any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Move approval.
Okay, Treasurer Davis moved. Is there a second?
So moved.
Mr. Witt, any other questions or comments?
I think Ms. Jones may have a question.
Ms. Jones?
I did have a question, because of it looks like it's an unbalanced bid between the highest and the lowest. Was there a analysis done onto why the, I guess, earned was?
Earn is the incumbent. And when you look at Earn's pricing and then the following pricing thereafter, outside of that 2.5 and 2.7, those numbers are not unbalanced. Some of those other bidders in the top three, in addition to not filling the form out right, didn't total the contracts completely as well. So there were questions even about whether or not they were going to meet the insurance requirements. You have to provide medical insurance on this contract, and whether they were meeting the county minimum wage rule. So in addition to their problems with the bid forms, I just don't think they were in the right marketplace. And when you look at the balance of the pricing, it's pretty consistent. And again, the incumbent was number 4. And so if anybody understands the work, it's the incumbent.
Any other questions? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Is there another question?
I might add that Earn is an MDOT contractor, MDOT certified minority contractor, and so they'll self-perform half of that goal.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Number 4 is approved unanimously. Number 5.
Item 5, the Environmental Dredging and Restoration Group. This is site services for labor and equipment at NPA facilities. So we're going to be, they will be providing rental equipment rental with operators or manpower services for on-site transport of hazardous and non-hazardous liquid and solid waste. This is done as a competitive sealed bid, and we received 1 bid. This is with Subsurface Technologies for $2,933,700. SPI is also an MDOT MBE firm. The 19% goal for this project as well, and the term is for 3 years from the date of notice to proceed, and there are 2 option years, additional option years as well.
Any idea on this one, why we only got 1 bid? Yes.
Some of the firms that we're currently using now aren't happy with our terms as far as response time and it being hazardous waste and, lots of water coming in. We need a lot of emergency response quick. Interesting. And we are having trouble getting the services out there. It's just very, very competitive out there, and this is.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
So move.
Okay. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous approval. Number 6.
Item 6, this is the Environmental Dredging and Restoration Group. This is an NPA Environmental Management System MOU2, task number 2. The description is the safety and industrial hygiene services for NPA owned building or properties. This is off the AE shortlist, category 5, and the proposal we received from KCI is for $150,000. And it's a 24-month contract, and the ME goal is 29%.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions before we vote? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous approval. Number 7.
All right, item 7, environmental dredging and restoration. This is another NPA owned facilities asbestos removal and disposal. This project is to provide on-call services and furnish all materials and equipment, require regulatory notifications and reporting, perform all labor of the proper and safe removal and handling and disposal of friable and non-friable asbestos containing materials. This was done as an SBR RFP procurement or competitive seal proposal. We received 5 offers and we are awarding to the top 3 by scores, which is Barco Enterprises, Miyaka Services, and Atmos Solutions. And this is a 3-year contract with 2 option year renewals for $350,000 for the initial 3 years. And the MB goal is 15% as well. And again, the work under this contract shall be approved by MES on a task order basis.
Just out of curiosity, how does that work? Do you rotate them? Or do you
Well, there's no rotation.
send out a notice and see who can respond faster?
Each company will get a contract, and when work is needed, the group will then, I guess, issue it's we'll issue a proposal to the group and then, or to that actual contractor, and then they'll provide, MES, I guess, the work detail. Is that usually how it works?
Actually, we're gonna go with the primary bidder, the one that's scored the highest, and give them an opportunity if we can't come to a good.
Okay, so it will be primary.
And I missed, if you don't mind me adding, I don't think you mentioned here that the two of these are MDEs.
Okay, wonderful. 2 of the top 3.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
MDE products.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second,
Aye.
thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous approval. Number 8,
All right, item
last
8.
but not least.
Last but not least, we made it. So this is the Environmental Operations Group, and the project name is Prince George's County Organic Composting Facility and Prince George's County Materials Recycling Facility. This is for waste hauling services. It's competitive sealed bid, and Copeland Trucking Inc. Again, this is actually a change order, so this is change order number 1 for $100,000. The revised total amount comes to $200,000, and there was original goal of 0%. Copeland Trucking is a certified MDE as well.
Any questions? If not, we're looking for a motion. Any motions?
So moved.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
Wonderful. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, we have another unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Kessel.
You're welcome.
All right, next we have the procurement notifications. These are any of the contracts, purchase orders, amendment and change orders between 25K and 200K. Are there any questions?
No. Still no.
Okay, and I do believe we are now ready for the group update, and we are going to start with Ms. Webb. Oh.
I get to do the introduction though.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Ford.
So great. Angie is our Chief of Recycled Materials and Products. we're really fortunate to have Angie. She's got a 10-year experience with one of the largest, prior to joining MES, with one of the largest independent commodity traders in the country, in Canusa Hirschman. And she's come to us 3 years ago and has made an incredible difference in terms of our approach and the results that we get from our recycling marketing program for both Prince George's and Montgomery County and the Midshore operations now. And we're really happy to have her with us and with you today to give this update. We thought we would give you a peek at what happens to plastics after they leave our MRF. So with that, Angie, take it away.
Thank you, Tim Ford, and good morning. Thank you for having me. Okay, so group update for us, plastics recycling focus on PET markets. I hope you find this interesting. Short review. So, I'm marketing, so we love to start off things by, showing some marketing things in your face. Any show of hands? Show of hands, has anybody seen any of these headlines out in the place? Raise them up. I want to see some hands. You'll wait. There we go. So, I like to point this out because my favorite one, which burns my britches really bad, is from Recycling Today, the updated report that identifies gaps in the U.S. residential recycling systems. That hurts me inside a little bit. How about the New York Times that says, can plastic recycling ever really work? And these are all from the last 6 to 8 months. Like, this is current times. I didn't pull anything from years ago. This is now. This is what people are saying now. And it really upsets me because look at this. You have the PR Newswire that says Florida Public Services opened up their huge polymer center out west. I mean, it's massive. Waste Management's doing some of the same things. You have Recycling Today. What about that says that Recycling Associates, which is a huge player in the industry, adds another processing. Envision adds a second line for recycled HDPE and PP. Before, this is huge. That means the recycling does work. That's my point here. If you put your recyclables in your curbside bin and it goes to a MRF, it does get recycled. So all those silly little, headlines out there are just trying to throw people off. If you do it, it works. I just like to put that up because there's such a bad conception. Sorry. I'm a little passionate right now.
And today I'm wearing my shoes that are made from recycled water bottles. Should show.
So, the reason why we picked PET really quick is, to me, it's the most interesting of what the end product comes out to be. Also, quick fun fact is PET, the collection, makes up over half of the curbside collection and post processed. So the majority of the plastics that we sell out of the 2 MRFs are PET, and that's everywhere. That's just not our MRFs. That's just the general markets. So it's cool. All right. So this is a little bit of an overview of the types of plastics. You have your number 1, your soda water bottles. You have, which is the first picture. You have your number 2. We call that HDP natural. That's going to be your milk jugs. Usually like a clear is what they call it. You have, again, another number 2 is your HDP color, your laundry detergents, jugs, your milk, or not milk, but your orange juice is a big one in there. And that's the third picture. And then the last picture is your number 5, the polypropylenes. That's going to be your yogurt, butter tubs, and lids. And next slide. Oh, I do want to say that you can't really see how big those bales are, but I don't know if anybody's ever been to one, but they weigh 1,800 to 2,000 pounds or so. They're massive. Yeah, and a truckload weighs about 40,000 pounds. A lot of material. Okay. Oh, yes, Dr. Glass. So, we give you a quick overview of the plastics. Now let's talk a little bit about where they go. So this was pulled from the closed loop partners. They have on their website, they have a really cool interactive map that you can play with to kind of see, different populations. You can see different end users where they are. And so that's what we kind of wanted to show here. This shows you the different end users, kind of where they are within the United States for the different commodities and resins. So your PET is going to be in green. You have your HDPE, whether it's natural or color, they lump them together in your orange. Your polypropylene is going to be that purple color. You don't see a lot of that, very few processors for that product. Your mixed plastics are going to be like your bulky mixed rigids, toys, things of that nature. Then you have your other one-off plastics, which not many processors have. Something I like to point out is, we are here on the East Coast, east of the Mississippi. As you see, there are a bunch of different PET processors down south, a little bit up north, but also in the Midwest. Most of the PET generated here on the East Coast, especially here in the Atlantic region, generally goes down to the Carolinas. There's a couple of really big processors out there. So we are really, strategically located to be able to keep PET and most plastics going domestically, which I think is key. Can't always ship everything overseas. Excellent. This I think is a video. It shouldn't have sound, but this is a quick overview and a video of the facility, the unified facility where most of the PET goes down in Reidsville, North Carolina. What they do is they bring it in, they sort it out further, they clean it up, and then they process it obviously to make more textiles and fiber, which is really cool. So it's just a quick video that kind of shows the process. They use NRT equipment to do the sorting system. They have a wash grinding system as well, and then other high-tech systems that they use to make it into the fiber. So it's a really cool video. I love it. You can watch it all. I think it's a minute or two, I'm not sure. So this is the first step. It's going through optical sorters and things of that nature to kind of get the color, because what they're really looking for is the clear. And that's very specific, important to note is most of these guys want clear because that's how you make your fragrance. Or you can dye it any other way. This is fun. This is the first wash line that it goes through. So they actually wash it before they grind it, which is really, really interesting. So it gets washed. So that means all the labels get taken off, any other debris that may be in there. It's going to go through another little sort system before it gets chopped up into flake.
I see a lot of bottle caps in there, and that always seems to be a question.
They always get shaken up.
They do.
Mm-hmm. And so what these processors do is they end up selling that, so it doesn't go into the landfill. They have resin buyers that purchase that. So that's why they say, and you'll see now, a lot of the bottles have, please leave your cap on.
Yeah.
They want that because it is a commodity, and it doesn't go in the landfill if you keep it on the bottle. So that's why it's important.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if you watch them. I don't know how much we can skip to this. And we can also send out this video. We have it. I think it's really cool to see if you can see like the whole. It's really mind. So we'll fast forward over to, you saw a little bit of the process. Now, what does it make? So each step, first you have your baled plastic bottles that come from the MRF, from the curbside. It goes through that wash and grinding process, which then makes your PET flake, which you see in picture number 2. And then from there, at the Reprieve Recycling Center, which is also in North Carolina, just in Yankville, I want to say, the flake is then melted down and reformulated into small pellets that they call chip or resin, which is in picture number 3. And then the final 2 steps or step is the resin is then melted again and extruded and spun into the Reprieve fiber, which is or poi, as they call it in picture 4. And then they spin it into the textured yarn and the spools.
We forgot the 6th step. Shelly shoes.
All right. Absolutely. So it's a long process, totally state of the art. They are very proud of the facility. It's massive, it's wonderful. And I think they do a really amazing thing,
Have you been there?
I haven't got to physically be there, but I work really closely past 20 years with the buyer there.
Oh.
And he has done multiple virtual visits to talk about the facility, how it runs, the equipment, and he's always willing to talk about and educate people. And the very last slide is the brands. So, as you can see, I don't know what brand your shoes are, but everybody shops at all these places, I'm sure. These are all the common brands that use Reprieve Protection Yarn. These are the big ones. I mean, there's a billion. But these are the really, really big champions that they call in sustainability. So I started out at IKEA. I find it very cool that, you know, a lot of their fiber and couches and things like that have the Reprieve in there. I think that's awesome. Everybody knows Under Armour, Baltimore here. But yeah, just to kind of give you an idea, pretty much everything you touch, everything you have on, somebody has on it. So it's very interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So just a little overview. Any questions?
Yeah, that was great, Angie. Welcome.
I'm gonna, thank you guys.
Eleanor. Good morning.
Today I want to present on Hartwell Island Dredge Material Facility. It's located in Chesapeake Bay near the mouth of Back River. Or not, Middle River, that goes in my mind. Okay, anyway, it was 40 years ago, back this past November, that MES entered into a contract with the Maryland Board Administration at which to provide dredge material operations for Hart Miller Island, which is our first major contract and project with Port Authority with dredge material management. So 40 years ago, this past November. So it's a big milestone. Yes. This project site was originally a chain of 3 islands, Hart, Miller, and Pleasure Island, that suffered from severe erosion over the years. And in the early 1970s, port partners suggested using dredge material to restore the 2 largest remnants, Hart and Miller Island, by creating a dike enclosure to create an area for capacity for the port's needs for dredging to increase the depths of the channels. So since this was a new concept and project for the state of Maryland, there was some community opposition and concerns. So in 1978, the community and environmental groups in the area filed a lawsuit against the Corps of Engineers to stop the project. It did delay the project a good bit, but in 1980, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of having the project continued. So lucky us. And the dike system was able to be constructed in 81 and was finished right before 1984. And at that time, the Hart Miller Island Citizens Oversight Committee was created by the General Assembly in 1983. And this provided a forum for the community to voice their concerns, also get information and provide some input to the project goals. And it's been a very successful, long-standing community group. Just taking a look at Hart Miller sky. On the total acreage is 1,140 acres. The south cell on the left is 290 acres, and the north cell on the right is 750 acres. Hart Island, you can see just above the south cell, and the Miller Islands towards the right upper end of the north cell. And in between the 2 islands is the DNR State Park beach area. And then now that's the south cell has been turned over to DNR as a park service with the area in the south cell, the 2 of us that DNR manages. The total capacity of the site was, as designed, is 100 million cubic yards. But since we still have remaining 7 land units due to the completion. Some of the milestones, the first dike raising from the original plus 18 to plus 28 feet, occurred between 88 and 89. The second dike raising only was for the north cell, and that took the elevation all the way to plus 44 back in 1997. South cell inflow started in 1984 and finished in 1990. It was later restored through a grant through the federal government. And that substantially completed in 2005. There's been some since then. The north-south inflow started in 85 and was completed December 31st, 2009. The last day we were able to bring in inflow due to law. It was written in the law that we couldn't bring in inflow after that date. And then the South Cell public access was opened in 2016. Park Miller Island is a very valuable resource for recreation and wildlife habitat. Each year, we have many visitors between May through September at the state park. Last year, over 44,000 people came to enjoy biking. DNR provides bikes on the island, you get over there. Hiking, swimming, boating, fishing, camping, and picnicking. There's a lot to do if you can get over there. There's also a 5-mile hiking area through a portion of the South South. And then each year in the fall, DNR hosts a 5-mile foot race. Since 2018, it's a run around the 5.3 mile loop around the dike system. And MES and MPA help support this each year. And also MES provides outreach tours on behalf of MPA. Last year we had 46 tours with over 780 visitors. And most of those tours were birding tours because Park Miller Island is a really big birding site. It's part of the Atlantic Flyway, the migratory corridor, which creates a lot of opportunities for birds to stop there, and it's probably one of the largest areas. There's over 300 species that have been birds that have been identified, and Park Miller Island is listed as the eBird's #1 hotspot in Maryland this past year. Left to do is develop the north-south. It's very large. After this restoration is complete, DNR will manage the entire Park Miller Island as a state park. DNR and MPA and MES are working towards the final design with input from the Citizens Oversight Committee. And the goals of this development will be to continue that habitat for migratory birds and provide continue with passive recreation for visitors. And also, the really important one is to minimize long-term operation needs costs in such a large area. And this is the selected option for option D, we're calling it, for the habitat restoration of the north-south. It's going to consist of 200-acre pond and 68 acres of transitional habitat from that pond to the upland area, and the upland will comprise about 500 acres in that north-south. All this comes with an estimated construction cost of $47 million. It's a very steep amount, and right now MES is tasked with finding modifications and other methods that we can reduce those costs down and perform some of them. So, despite a rocky start, Park Miller Island is really quite an asset for the state as far as recreation and wildlife.
Next.
Okay, well, thank you. A lot of our pictures from our calendar are here, correct? Yeah. Ms. Letnick. Guess we're doing podium today.
My project seems so tiny after Park Miller Island. But a lot of the other groups have big operational projects. In TES, we have a lot of smaller projects, but just as important, unfortunately. For the GIS group in TES, we've been working on a project with State Highway Administration's Office of Planning and Preliminary Engineering to provide georeferencing and document support services. Georeferencing is the process of relating maps to actual systems of coordinates on the ground and in real life. So the purpose of this work is to provide information primarily to the archaeologists at SHA for their efforts in identifying, understanding, and preserving historical legacies. The first step in this process is to locate historical maps and aerial photography for digital snapshots of the past. Next, the team weaves together those historical documents, precisely matching the coordinates or any unchanged structures from historical maps to the modern imagery. The process of meticulously clipping together and stitching together all these pieces of data is called mosaicing, and it forms a seamless, comprehensive image that can then be used to witness the evolution of a landscape on a large scale. And then as an example of this process, this video is a section of Baltimore City from 1849 through present day. So it's not just about comparing maps, it shows a journey through time, showcasing the transformation of it. Next slide. Sorry about that. That's okay. One more back. They're stuck. There we go. They're stuck. So the front end of the work on georeferencing involves a deep dive into historical landscapes from maps and photographs that usually span from like 1860 to 1980. To do this, MES has forged direct collaborations with agencies that hold a unique piece of that historic puzzle. So this includes the Library of Congress, Johns Hopkins University Library, the Pratt Library, the Maryland counties, of course, they have information, the state archives, the Historical Trust, and then other government agencies such as NOAA, Geological Survey, and the Department of Agriculture. So an example of some of these pieces that get mosaic together, the top is a map of Frederick County in 1861. That one came from the Library of Congress. The second is a section of the Wacomico River in 1932. This one came from NOAA and was originally captured by the Coast Guard during their survey. And then the bottom is an aerial photograph of Anne Arundel County from 1970, which came from USDA. So you can see each visual type of source material lends itself to piecing together that comprehensive historical look. Next.
Quick question on that. Did you review or have you looked at the Rumsfeld collection that Stanford holds? It's the biggest collection of these historical maps that I've ever seen. And it's amazing. There's hundreds of thousands of maps that they hold.
Rumsfeld collection. Okay. And is that for maps across the United States? So
it's across the world. There's a lot in the US, there's a lot of individual states, and there's a lot of historic maps that go back quite a ways.
okay, that's good. Thank you. I'll pass that on to the team and see if they have access to that, and if not, if they're able to get access to it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, and although this work is primarily in support of State Highway, there's several other benefits that these images will provide beyond the initial scope of the project. First, the georeference images will be readily available to the public through IMAP, and IMAP is a free public resource of Maryland mapping data. So this means that these maps are available to a wider audience, researchers, students, the general public, people interested in seeing this type of information. SHA plans to not only use these maps for their historical information, but also as a tool for their urban expansion plans. Furthermore, MDE can use these maps for their environmental project screening to help ensure that future projects align with sustainable practices. Because of course, understanding the past always helps you make more informed decisions about the future. And there's still future opportunities with these images. For example, they could become part of the Watershed Resource Registry, which is a comprehensive repository of information, allowing researchers and decision makers to go beyond mapping to look for potential sites for restoration and preservation, that sort of thing. And this final image is just a visual that showcases two aerial photographs from our MES headquarters, one from 2020 and one from 1957. So it's sort of just a testament to the changes in landscape, even over a relatively short period of time. this work is always available. I joke, anytime we have an intern, we stick them on this because there's so much data. And it's just always work that needs to be done. We had our summer intern come back over the winter and we were like, hey, we got something for you, so. Yeah, it keeps everyone busy, but it's really actually fascinating. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Finally, Mr. Burr, would you like to introduce our next guest?
Thank you very much. In the waterways, we have a privilege to serve the Maryland parks. And so while we visit the state park, there is behind the scenes, we've been supporting them. Esky is here to tell you about the Point Lookout State Park. It's at the southern tip of Central Maryland. If you haven't had a chance to visit the park, it's a fantastic park, great water views. Esky, who's a graduate of the Istanbul Technical University, has spent 8 years here at MES and dedicated herself to MES and planning, designing, and constructing water and wastewater treatment facilities. Most of all, she's reminded me of how outstanding a bench we have in the water wastewater group. So Esky,
Thank you. Good morning, all. Time is it, but as Mr. Bryson said, I'll talk about Point Lookout State Park. We have 2 capital improvement projects going on there. I'll start with a quick overview of the state park. The Point Lookout State Park is a Department of Natural Resources facility located on the southern tip of St. Mary's County at the junction of Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac River. This site also holds a significance as the site where the Confederate soldiers once imprisoned during the Civil War. The park is open year-round and total 6 camping loops, and more than 150 campsites. MES operates the existing wastewater treatment plant, water treatment plant, and the pumping stations at the site, and Department of Natural Resources maintains the collection and distribution system throughout the facility. As I mentioned, we have 2 ongoing projects currently: collection and distribution system upgrade project and wastewater treatment plant upgrade. First, I'd like to go over the collection and distribution system upgrade project. The project consists of replacement of 22,000 linear feet of water mains with C900 PVC pipes, replacement of existing 300 linear feet of existing center sewer pipe with PVC pipes, replacement of 6,000 linear feet of existing center court mains with HDPE pipes, replacement of sanitary sewer manholes, also 37 manholes, and upgrades to 13 sewer pumping stations and replacement of 7,000 gallon capacity potable hydropneumatic tank. Currently, it's under construction. Total construction duration days is 730 calendar days. I can say the construction is at approximately 40% complete, and anticipated substantial completion date is February 2025. This project has significant challenges that I would like to mention, and primarily due to the high water table and the substantial clay content in the soil. And due to these conditions, the existing soil cannot attain the required compaction for use as structural fill alongside the roadways, and also not suitable for the pipe backing for the gravity mains. So consequently, that removing removal, disposal, and handling that unsuitable soil and implementation of the selected fill at this site caused a significant change order and led a notable increase in the contract amount. And the complicated matters further, a portion of the proposed lines are set to go through the consolidated smallpox cemetery located at the site. So in order to mitigate the risk of associated excavating human findings and navigate the potential additional permit requirements, we decided to move forward with a horizontal directional drilling instead of open cut excavation for that location. That portion of the work hasn't been started yet. We anticipate to start in the next month or so. And in addition to all these challenges, this project operates at very tight schedule, given the park closure during the construction. But I would like to say, despite all these challenges, contractor performing and progressing well. And the next project that we ongoing there is the Point Lookout wastewater treatment plant upgrade. You can see the picture on the right side is the existing wastewater treatment plant. The existing wastewater treatment plant utilizes the rotating biological contactor process with a capacity of 90,000 gallons per day. The existing treatment system is very old and deteriorating. So we are in the process of operating the existing treatment plant to an enhanced nutrient removal treatment system to reduce the nitrogen and phosphorus loadings to the Chesapeake Bay. The existing wastewater treatment plant has a very limited footprint, surrounded by wetlands, is within the critical area compared to floodplain, and also expansion beyond the existing pencil line is impacted by the potential archaeological findings. So considering all these site constraints and the limited footprint, we decided to move forward with the membrane biological reactor process, MBR process, which doesn't require a big footprint and can achieve ENR limits, total nitrogen of 3 and total phosphorus of 0.3 milligram per liter. And after reviewing the 20-year life cycle cost analysis and considering the flow variations throughout the year, we decided to we picked the ceramic membranes over the polymeric membranes. The construction will take in 2 phases. The first phase will have 45,000 gallons per day, and our ultimate capacity will be 90,000 gallons per day. Right now, the design is 90% complete. Preliminary, this project was determined to be 50% eligible by MDE for Bay Restoration Fund grant. And we submitted the 90% design documents and the most updated construction cost estimate to MDE, and we currently are waiting for the final ENR eligibility determination.
I was going to say, and I'd like to add too, I mean, the issue of doing any kind of construction work at a park is they don't like you in there between Memorial Day and Labor Day. That's always their busiest season. So they actually went ahead and said that they would be willing to close down for one season so we can get water and sewer lines in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of our presenters. Those were fantastic presentations. Is there any new or old business for discussion? Mr. Coleman, we have a legal report.
I'll be updating the board on some matters in litigation during the session.
We do have our next meeting on Thursday, February 29th, 2024 at 9:30 a.m. hybrid, just like this one. I do believe we are ready for a full session of this. There's anything else. I have a copy of the full session form. Thank you. But so we are looking to go into closed session. For 8, oh, there it is. To consult with staff consultants or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. So if we have a motion to that effect, we can move into closed session. I do believe we will adjourn in the closed session. Is that correct? Okay. We will not resume open session today.
Yes, motion, second is closed session.
So
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Is there a second to move into closed session?
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?